It took 9 years and three different developers, but Dead Island 2 is finally here. The big question now is if it was even worth it to begin with. When the original game came out, it was a decent success, but it did spawn the Dying Light series. Deep Silver basically branched off and split into two teams, one of them working on the Dead Island 2 sequel, and the other side working on the Dying Light series. Inevitably, Dying Light became very, very popular, and that caused Dead Island 2 to become this weird shovelware, or even, I guess a better word would be vaporware. People thought it was never going to come out, especially when Dying Light became so popular. And I think a lot of people preferred Dying Light over Dead Island. Dying Light 2 had a sequel that came out last year, and I played it, and I actually gave up on the game halfway through. I just didn't find the characters or the world to be all that interesting, and I was just never able to get back to it. Dead Island 2 takes place in Los Angeles, and you get to choose between 6 different characters that are dubbed Slayers. Each character has a unique ability, and some of them are more agile, while others operate more like a tank enemy. At the start of the game, they'll either be able to dodge attacks or block attacks. However, as you progress through the story, you'll acquire a skill card that'll allow you to then swap between either a dodge or a block. So it really doesn't matter in the long run. You can pick Ryan like I did, who's tough and has a lot of health. And at the beginning of the game, you can only block with him. But as you progress through the story, you will unlock a new skill card, and that will then allow you to then swap to the dodge mechanic, and then you can dodge with Ryan instead. The story of Dying Light is very bare bones. Your survivor ends up getting bit by a zombie, finds out that they're immune, and then you have to track down a doctor who believes he can make a cure from your blood. Nothing you haven't seen before, nothing you weren't expecting. You'll get the most bang for your buck from the story by doing the side missions and meeting all the side characters within the world. A lot of them are kind of parodies of Hollywood, LA types. Out of all of the side missions I've done so far, the most memorable is this streamer who films you killing zombies to post on her YouTube page. But you didn't come to Dead Island 2 for any story. You came here to bash zombies' heads in. And that's what the game does really, really well. The combat feels heavy. It feels like there's a lot of crunch and a lot of weight to all of your moves. Halfway through the story, you end up getting access to guns. And I'd say they're serviceable for getting the job done when you need to use them. I found them quite useful whenever I was around one of the more heavier kind of boss enemies. So the big giant guys, the screamers, the bloaters. I really use the guns on them to help whittle down their health a lot quicker than using hand-to-hand combat. Weapon mods are in the game. You can access them through workbenches that are scattered all across the map. You can also buy weapons from vendors. You can find weapons in the world. Sometimes enemies themselves drop them after you kill them. You can also find them locked away behind fuse boxes. You grab a fuse from a vendor, you put it in the fuse box, it unlocks, and you find a weapon there. The one thing I will criticize with the fuse boxes is you can only hold 3 fuses at a time. And the fuses are only acquired through the vendors. You cannot find these fuses just laying around the world in a briefcase or a toolbox. You can't find them. So if you're low on fuses or you're out of fuses, but you want to get one of the weapons locked away, you have to go back to a safe house, go to your vendor, and then get the fuse from them. The game is semi-open world, so it doesn't function like, say, a Grand Theft Auto or a Watch Dogs. There are 10 locations that are split up through loading screens. Two of these locations are a sewer and a metro station that is underground. The rest are places like Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Santa Monica Pier, just different areas that are somewhat iconic for the Los Angeles area. And they all are meticulously crafted. The visuals of the game are stunning. The game runs at a smooth 60 frames on the PlayStation 5, which is the system that I purchased the game on. One of my personal favorites is the house that you can find in Bel Air that is formerly owned by a bunch of streamers. And within this mansion, you can actually find a whiteboard that has a fake apology on it. And I thought that was really funny. There are 24 main story missions that you have to complete the story. It took me 14 hours to do that. And that's with completing a roughly 45% of the side missions, which there are a total of 33 of those. The story also does go at a pretty brisk pace. I'm going to assume that this was done intentionally because I'm assuming the developers want you to try to take a second crack at the story with a new character. While the gameplay loop itself of cutting down zombies left and right and doing the side missions is a lot of fun, there's definitely some cons to this game that I would like to criticize. First things first, there's this twist in the story that I just thought was kind of lame, like right at the very end. It's just super weird. I don't want to get into it too much, but when I was sitting there and watching it, I just thought like this is kind of silly, this explanation. And then the final boss fight sucked. I mean, it only took me 2 tries to complete, but it was just here's a character that you've already beaten, and now we're gonna do it again. But this time we're gonna throw a shitload of other characters against you with it. The game also heavily relies on circuit breakers. You go to a place, oh, the power's out. I have to find a circuit breaker. And then you have to walk around trying to find this circuit breaker, pick up the circuit breaker, haul it to the area, push it into the breaker point, and then the power turns on or the gate closes. You do this numerous times throughout the game, and trying to find these circuit breakers sometimes can be annoying. And then there's these weird, like, detective times where, oh, I don't know where to find information, so I got to look around and try to find it in this area. But the game doesn't do a good job of helping you figure out where you got to go. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just not good at this. But I had times where I was just running around an area trying to find some sort of interactable point where I could click square and continue the story. I really hated that stuff. It feels dated. It feels really dated. And it's one of those times where you're like, oh yeah, this game is like almost a decade old. And modern video games shouldn't be doing this crap anymore. Or if they do it in a lot better ways than this. I just don't think they like in games now, if you're looking for something, they'll highlight it. And they didn't do a good job, in my opinion, highlighting this in the game. One thing I really liked about the game was the way they handled the skill tree. It's not really skill tree in this game, it's skill cards. And I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to flesh it out more now. No pun intended. The skill tree works with these cards, and you unlock these cards through completing the story and leveling up your character, but you can also find them throughout the world. And then you can swap out these skill cards at will the more you unlock it. So if you want to focus more on getting health whenever you do a successful block or an execution, then you'll get it that way. If you want to have really strong power attacks, you can invest in that. Okay? And I thought that was a really unique way of handling this in an RPG, unlike a lot of other games where it's just unlock as many of these things as you possibly can and try to make your character as OP as possible. Now, with the skill tree comes this other part that I didn't like, and it's a bit spoilery, but they introduced this thing called autophage. And basically, because your character is infected but is immune, he has access to these special powers. And you can take these cards that the gimmick is they feed more into the virus. And the more of these cards you put into your deck, you end up becoming more and more powerful during Fury mode, which is like this OP attack point, right? But there are drawbacks, like you have less health, or certain items won't heal you anymore, and eventually you can get to a point where you no longer have regenerative health, you have lower stamina, so there's a lot of drawbacks there, right? But by the time this is introduced in the game, your character is already so powerful. I never felt like it was even useful to go down this path. And it just was like, I'm not going to do this. I want to be OP. I want to be able to, heal better. I want to have more health. I want good stamina. My weapons are really, really strong. I can kill a lot of these enemies in only 2 or 3 hits. So I don't see the point in getting any of these drawbacks for the benefit of, Fury mode, especially when Fury mode is good to use when you're in a pinch, but I never felt like I really needed to rely on it. If this game didn't have Fury mode, I don't think it would have even mattered, to be honest. A big selling point for the game during launch was their gore system, and it is actually very impressive. Bodies burn, limbs break off, eyes pop out, jaws get torn off. It is impressive to see, and I don't think I ever really got sick of seeing it. But overall, I definitely enjoyed this game a lot more than I originally thought I would have, especially since I didn't really enjoy the first Dead Island, and I ended up dropping Dying Light 2 halfway through, like I said. But I think it's fair to say that this is a game that you will probably be better off just waiting till it's on sale. It doesn't break any new ground. It's a pretty straightforward open world, first person melee game. You can play this game over a weekend or maybe even just a full week and get your fill. I will compliment Dead Island 2 for respecting your time. I don't believe that every game needs to be 100 hours to be worth money, but this game doesn't break any new ground. It's very straightforward. You've played this game 100 times. It's dumb fun. Dumb fun is good, and that's what Dead Island 2 is. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great podcast game. I think that's how I will describe it best. I'm going to pop in my headphones when I'm playing this, going through the side quests, going through another playthrough, and I'm going to catch up on podcasts or audiobooks while I cut through zombies. And it's definitely a game I feel like I did kind of need, if I'm being perfectly honest. If you yourself have played Dead Island 2, please let me know in the comments section below, and I will see you next time.